Today on the Barbecue Lab, we're going to give you a rundown of our experience using the Masterbuilt Dual Fuel Vertical Smoker. The Masterbuilt Dual Fuel Vertical Smoker was one of the first smokers that I ever successfully used to smoke everything from brisket to pork butt. It's a smoker that's relatively easy to use as long as you know how to make it work for your needs. The dual fuel options on this Masterbuilt smoker allows for cooking with either charcoal or propane. I've cooked on this with both sources, and I have to say there's benefits and drawbacks to both. Cooking with propane allows even temperatures throughout your entire cook. The fuel source is nice and steady flame from the propane tank, so your heat can be as close to set it and forget it as you can be with a propane source lit in the backyard. The drawback to cooking with propane is that it doesn't impart any beneficial flavors to the meat that you're cooking. So that's where the wood chips and wood chunks really come into the party. You've probably seen bags of wood chips like this one sitting on store shelves in the outdoor living section. And this is one of the grills that benefits from both chips and chunks depending on what kind of cook that you're doing. Wood chips burn up faster than wood chunks, but they can actually start adding smoke flavor to meat almost as soon as you put them in the flame bowl. If you're on a longer cook for something like a brisket, wood chunks will last longer and mean you won't have to open the door as often to add replacements. Adding in wood chips or chunks to the flame bowl means that you're adding wood to the pan right above where the propane flame is. The bowl is incredibly hot once the grill is lit, so it's entirely possible that your wood chips or chunks could catch fire and burn rather than just smoke. It's an old and primarily retired practice to soak your wood chips and chunks in water or apple juice prior to putting them on the grill. We don't want bad smoke that wet wood brings to our barbecue session, so don't worry about your wood catching fire. If it does, just replace it and keep on smoking. The second fuel option is to use charcoal briquettes or lump charcoal to provide the heat for you. I actually have found that there's two ways to light charcoal on this Masterbuilt smoker, and they both work really well for me. First, I would light up a chimney of lump charcoal and simply fill the fire bowl with lump once it was fully lit, and then I would add a few chunks of wood to the fire bowl and we'd be making smoke in no time. The second way that I'd light this grill was to fill the fire bowl with unlit charcoal and then turn on the propane. I would use the propane burner to light the charcoal in the fire bowl, and it had the charcoal up to temperature even quicker than lighting up a chimney. The main difference between the two types of fuel when you're cooking is that charcoal brings flavor to the party and propane really doesn't. If you want the flavor that charcoal brings to your meat, then it's the way to go. I found that almost any meat that I've cooked on any grill stops taking in smoke flavor after the first 4 or 5 hours, so after that point it's really just heat that we need even more than smoke. I got into a routine of starting the cook with charcoal and wood chunks and then finishing the cook using the propane flame. Both of the above methods will produce tasty barbecue, and the choice is really completely up to you. One of the reasons that I bought this smoker initially was because of the sheer space that it had at the $250 price point. With 4 racks of space to add food, I loved how much room I had to cook food for family and guests. The largest amount of food that I ever cooked at one time on this was a large full packer brisket and 2 pork butts, and it handled that amount of food with ease. Each piece of meat had its own shelf, and spritzing meat with an apple cider vinegar solution was simple since each shelf slides out to access all sides of the meat. For cleaning, the racks slide out completely so you can take them in and wash them down. That's a feature you don't find in all grills, but it's incredibly handy on this unit. The biggest challenge that I had on this unit was keeping a consistent temperature when using charcoal as my fuel source. It became difficult to add new charcoal to the fire after an hour or two into the cook. The fire bowl will come out of the grill, but it's difficult to pick up a 300-degree bowl of fire and add charcoal. It can be done, but briquettes fall out all over the place and onto your shoes, and as you maneuver it around, it's just not convenient to add charcoal with so little headroom above the fire bowl. The primary reason that there's not a lot of headspace above the fire bowl is because that's where the water pan can be found. Whether you cook with water in your smoker or not, it's a handy little pan to have in the bottom of the grill. The pan is removable, so if you're not into having water in your smoker, just take it out and you gain another 3 or 4 inches of space above your fire bowl. Since the water pan is directly above the fire source, it will need refilled constantly. I'm talking about refilled about once per hour if you'd like to keep water in there for the duration of the cook. My water pan went dry many times during longer cooks, and I found that adding cold water made it last a little bit longer since it had to come up to temperature before it could boil away. This does introduce a temperature change each time you add cold water, so this isn't something that I suggest. Just plain old warm water seemed to be what worked for me, and it kept temperatures pretty consistent. This smoker is a dual fuel and dual door smoker, which is a feature that I really enjoyed. When it came time to add wood chunks or water or refresh the coal bed, the bottom door opens without needing to open the cook chamber above. You've heard the old adage, if you're looking, you're not cooking. And this grill makes it so you can work with the fire and the water elements and the wood and smoke elements without opening the door to your food. I loved this feature, and I felt that it allowed me to keep more even heat on the meat on longer cooks by not opening the top door where the meat resides. The vents on the Masterbuilt dual fuel smoker can be found down on the sides next to the fire and on the top of the smoker in the back panel. Setting these vents takes a little getting used to, but once you dial in the temperature that you're shooting for, they take very little playing with. I found that when using charcoal, I had to pay much closer attention to how far the vents were open, but when cooking with propane, it didn't matter as much. But at the very least, you do want to make sure that you have a path for air to flow from the fire all the way up to the upper vent. As commonly found with grills at this price point, you'll notice that the metal is rather thin through this grill. This isn't heavy gauge metal by any stretch, but it does hold heat nicely, and we never had a problem with paint cooking off the outside surface. With many of the competitors, like Oklahoma Joe's smokers, like the Highland and the Longhorn and others that we've seen, we find that paint seems to bubble off within the first few cooks. And I've had over 30 plus cooks on this grill, and I still have all the original paint on all the outside surfaces. And I'm proud to say that this is a grill I don't mind people seeing on the porch when they come over. I love the way that it's held up despite being used regularly and in many different weather conditions. While we're on the topic of weather, this grill performs well in sun and rain, but wind can give it quite a challenge. On days that wind is in the 10 to 20 mile an hour range, the temperature of the Masterbuilt will fluctuate quite a bit. The thinner metal construction saves on the cost of the unit, but to the detriment of all weather compatibility. Rain can cool the unit down just like any other grill, but wind seems to be its nemesis. Moving the grill around the patio is actually a breeze though because of the light weight of the grill. Now the wheels that are on the back of the unit, man, they're fantastic. You just simply tip it back a bit and you can roll it wherever it needs to go. I'm also a fan of the push button igniter for the propane attachment, which years later still lights up the first time you push the button. The Masterbuilt dual fuel smoker has been a solid unit for us here at the Barbecue Lab, and if you're in the market for a smoker, it's definitely worth checking out. If you'd like to learn more about this smoker, click the links in the description below for more detailed information. And if you like what you saw here in this video, be sure to ring that bell and subscribe to our channel because we put out new videos every week to help you win your weekend, and we've got some great stuff planned. You're not going to want to miss what's coming up, so hit that bell. And if you know someone who likes to barbecue, give this video a share and bring them on into the Barbecue Lab family. We love meeting outdoor cookers all across the world, and after all, this is your channel. You help us decide what we review next by dropping a comment in the comments section below. I want to say thanks again for joining us here today on the Barbecue Lab, and we look forward to seeing you right here next time.